everybody, welcome back to another episode of Luncheonette with Laura Diaz. That's me, and I'm very excited to bring an awesome guest to the studio today for you guys. But first, I want to tell you a couple of things. Stay tuned. Do not turn off this internet connection early, because at the very end, we are going to premiere for you today the first time a special video created here by our wonderful video team at QPI, a foster parent recruitment video. And I hope you'll take a look at that and then share it with everybody you know, because as you know, we have a huge statewide recruitment campaign going on, and we want to share how exciting foster parenting is with everybody and have them jump on board. So with that, I'm going to go to my always awaiting top 5 list. So this time, I'm not going to do a joke. We had talked at the previous broadcast about foster children and integrating foster children into the home, and we're going to be talking about some things related to that today. So I wanted to give you a top 5 that actually comes from the foster children themselves. So we went to some foster kids and said, what are your top 5 tips for foster parents? And here they are. Number 1, this is what they're giving as advice to us. Number 1, don't ask questions about my biological family at first. It embarrasses us or makes us sad. Number 2, don't beat us. I think that's a good one. Number 3, treat us the same as you would treat your other children. Number 4, when we're sad, show us you care. And number 5, love us a lot. And that's straight from the kids, so we will take that to heart. Okay, so now, getting ready to introduce to you our speaker and guest for today. It is the very Honorable Judge Lynn Tepper, and she is the judge in Circuit 6. She has been on the bench for 28 years, and I can tell you that I can eat up all our entire time today reading her extensive bio. She is very famous and very active. She was even on the Oprah Winfrey Show and CNN, and she has been active particularly in the things for us foster parents that apply to our day-to-day life is in her the statewide Supreme Court Dependency Court Improvement Panel. You know, there's a lot of work been going on in there in the courts. Also the Dependency Bench Book and updating that, and we've also worked on she's worked on with QPI the Engaging Families Through, or the Family-Centered Practice, which is kind of some of what we're going to go into today. So the topic of our conversation today is engaging families through creative, safe, and promising family time. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Judge Tepper. We're going to have a nice conversation about that, and you guys may know that, formerly known as visitation. So welcome, Judge Tepper.
Thank you. I'm just thrilled to be here, and of course, you know, I'm a big fan of yours and this education that you're doing with Carol Schofer and QPI, and it matters. And I only hope you're successful in getting more foster parents that are as good and open-minded as you and the foster parents I've met that you've been working with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I have to tell you that, of course, I've been working with children that have been in the foster system from back when I was a public defender, a very long time ago. That was my first exposure, and their memories of foster care were very strong, and that touched me as an attorney. It helped me understand who they were as a juvenile delinquent or as a very serious offender in the adult system. Mm-hmm. I also saw how it never left them. The injuries from their parents, but as well as their love and attachment, no matter how severely damaged they would be. You and I would say, how could you possibly want to have a relationship with this person that beat you, burnt you, sexually abused you, and yet they always wanted to go back, and that has been my experience. Frustration in dealing with, unfortunately, second and third generations, you have to ask yourself, what can I do to change that, to reverse that cycle? Mm-hmm. And everything has come together with the work of QPI, with the 0 to 3 and FSU and Dr. Mimi Graham, and also actually Dr. Tim Evans, who has worked on encouragement for children. I started taking a different take on how we could do this. And of course, Florida law gives us a great deal of guidance, but we have expanded that with the scientific best practices on bonding. breaking a bond for a child is devastating. All we have to do is look at the Harvard study on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, to see how that impacts a child through the rest of their life. I think it's important, before we talk about creative opportunities for parents to parent, to engage parents, is to look at why, in order to engage the parents, we have to look at who the parents are and their life. And looking at that is looking at the ACEs study. I have discovered over the years, I get all the background reports. I'll get the prior reports, even though they may not have been verified in the system. And I look at the parents, and I look at the reports on them when they were children. And lo and behold, that parent that I have today, who's substance abusing, is a parent who had been a victim of child abuse, or who had reported it several times.
So what you're saying is that when a new case comes in, you're able to access the information on the parent as well?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good to know.
Well, and of course judges should require that. The CPIs that appear in front of me know that I expect that information. I get it at shelter as well as at disposition in the predispositional study. It is incredibly telling. What happens is, I'll look and I'll see they had been beaten, they had been neglected. Maybe they went to foster care. Maybe they didn't go to foster care and they should have. Maybe they had their first baby at 15. When I see that, it tells me something about their need to heal, the trauma. As we well know, we talk about trauma-informed care. Well, what is that? It means, basically, let's focus on what hideous, significant act occurred that was adverse to them as a child. Sex abuse is typical, beatings. It can be psychological. It can be chronic neglect. Chronic neglect has terrible impacts on children. And that doesn't just go away. In fact, they have found through the Harvard study that it often manifests later in life. It may have happened when they were 2, 5, 9, but we may not see it till they're an adolescent. We may not see it till they are an adult. And the statistics are astounding. We know that it impacts them so that they are less resilient to the effects of stress, and stress is very important for us to understand. They become more vulnerable to depression. Does this sound like the parents that we have? More vulnerable to addiction, more vulnerable to being diagnosed as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And then the shocking part is they're actually also more likely to be subject to chronic diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure, heart attacks, and stroke. So when I have a parent that appears in front of me for the first time, and I see this background report, I have discovered that instead of being judgmental and shaking my finger at them, before I can get to the point of talking about creative parenting time, I have to begin to form a relationship with that parent. So instead, I'm trying to reach a hand out and pull them up and recognize, acknowledge what was secret, perhaps. What wasn't acknowledged, may not have been founded when they were a child. They weren't believed. Acknowledge it, and I'll say, by the way, I see that when you were younger, that there had been complaints of you being beaten as a child, and they usually just shake their head. Or I might say, because they're not ready to talk about it, by the way, did you know we have a free program for adults who have been victims of sex abuse as children that may not have involved the authorities? Do you think that might help you? And you can see there's just their whole face changes. My bailiff, who's a therapeutic foster parent, reports herself. She says you should see their entire attitude changes, their physical appearance changes. It's like they can breathe.
Well, because maybe at that point somebody is recognizing them that maybe what they're doing they don't want to do, but it is, like you said, it's a cycle, it's a pattern, because they haven't dealt with their own things. So when they say, wow, they're not here to just accuse me and throw me in jail per se.
Which is what they think.
Exactly.
I've got a sheriff's deputy who's the CPI in our case, in our county, and it's all us against them, and I make sure they understand we're a team. We're all here together. We all have the same purpose, and that's to find out how fast we can safely return your children to you. And they're like, okay, because in their heart, most of them recognize that they have problems and that maybe it isn't safe for their children to be with them. But to know that the goal is to get their children back instead of we're here to take your children and you'll never see them again.
Right.
And I also make sure they understand, and we also want to maximize the parenting time, the opportunities you will have to see your children. It, again, suddenly they're open-minded. As a result, we have parents, because of what I am setting and because we work as a team to make it happen, I'm trying to find ways for these parents to parent. I don't want them to just visit. We all know that we're supposed to attempt normalcy for the children. We're supposed to try and find natural settings for the parents to spend time with their children. And so we work with the prospective foster parents. We try to find family members. And the family members do not even have to be the caregivers. But they have to be approved, and are they willing to supervise? And their home might be approved, so maybe the children can go to a home they're familiar with, grandmas, aunts, uncles, and have a visit with a parent. Or they might be able to go to a park that they're familiar with, a museum, maybe the playground at their school or their church, maybe go to church together, meet at church, go to doctor's appointments, school activities. And when you add all those up, number one, you get a lot of time together. You have an opportunity to assure the child, and this is the piece we always forget, that child is often worried about, is my dad okay?
Right.
Is my mom okay? Is dad too depressed? Did he kill himself? Is mom shooting up again? Is mom being beaten? Is dad, I'm worried about my dad. Is he okay? Did he come home last night? They worry.
Well, in a lot of the cases, I think that these children have taken care of their parents.
They're parentified, absolutely.
They are. And so you can see that they would worry for their parents the same way some parents would worry for their children.
And then, of course, what the poor foster parents see when we suddenly say, no visits until you have a clean urine screen. Well, good luck on that. That's going to take a lot of time. Instead, you have a child who's sitting there worried about their parent. They're going to start grieving, and then they go through the entire cycle of grief, and the foster parent's dealing with anger, denial, and behaviors that are going to thwart the best interest of the child and being able to focus on school, focus on being cared for, and to focus on having normal sibling foster parent relationships instead of being the parent to the parent. So it really does make a difference, I find, for parents that are substance abusing, is to focus on that trauma. Because I've done this for so many years, and I actually stay in touch with many of both my former foster children that I had that are in their 30s, children that became parents whose children were taken away as well, but have gone on to great success, I consider, when you're more than a year clean, and I'm helping other parents now. They talk to me about what did work and what didn't work, about what we did. And it is that trauma. Dealing with that trauma is essential for them to get to the point where they can have a healthy relationship with their child. Obviously, we want to maximize the amount of time they can spend with their child, but the child also is going to see the benefit when I have a parent that's clean and sober, that I have a parent who isn't depressed. Depression hurts, and that's when we have parents that self-medicate and they can't parent when they're depressed. So I've had a history now of parents who had lost children in the past. Okay, they got sober, but they didn't deal with that nagging childhood trauma, that adverse child trauma that maybe this child is actually also going through.
Right, so it's on their case plan, and they said, I'm going to knock this out. I do it, but the problem is still out there.
And then when life happens to them, they don't know how to deal with it.
Right,
so
they're back in the system again.
The parents that then we get them to focus on that old trauma, as they say, that voice that just keeps talking to them, they are the successful parents. And along the way, what we discovered is they are starting to get sober, and the more frequent we have safe opportunities in natural settings for them to visit with their children, the more driven they are to engage, to achieve what they need to be a healthy individual, to be a happy individual. That's what I love, is we get parents that had been pill addicted. You know, they just zoned out in the middle of court, zoned out in the middle of a visit. And I tell them, okay, I'm going to make an opportunity for you to see your children, and it depends on the age. If I have a newborn, I'm going to strive to do it 3 to 5. I've even done 7 times a week for an hour, because it's a frequency that will build the bond. But I'm not going to make you pass a urine test, but you have to appear straight. You have to appear sober. You can't smell like drugs. You can't nod off in the middle of your visit, and we're going to focus on your child. I want you to have a chance to parent. No talking on the phone. Don't bring anybody else with you. Let's have a chance for you to parent. If it's time to feed the baby, I want you to feed the baby. If it's time to change the baby's diaper, I'd like you to be able to read to your child. We give books and stuffed animals the community gives. And that parent, even though they may have been doing 30 pills a day, will start to ease off because they know they have a visit on Wednesday. And so they're going to ease off so that they can be straight enough and they have a good visit. And now that's the endorphins are going off, and they're having a great visit. And for older children, we wouldn't do it as frequently necessarily. They're already bonded, but we'll make other opportunities to have contact with the parent. We'll allow appropriate phone calls that meet with the schedule of the foster parent or the caregiver. Letter writing, I encourage that the parents send cards and letters. Of course, we can get them monitored, make sure nothing inappropriate is going on. For some, as you know, foster parents create foster email addresses that are designed for the parents. Parents that have access to the email can write to their older children. I encourage the children to do artwork to give to their parents. And suddenly, even a parent that I have in jail, I love to see it. We have a parent in jail, and they're at least having, that's creative for me, is having them send artwork and photographs of this newborn or an older child. And particularly, older boys are very bonded to their daddies. And when I have somebody in jail that's in state prison somewhere else in the state, and let's say the child's in court, and we have the parent appearing by phone, I'll say, would you like to say something, to your son? I love you, son. Keep working hard at school. I understand you're doing well. And then the child will come right up to the phone. I love you, Daddy. I miss you so much. I can't wait for you to come home. And it's not easy, as you know, to make phone calls in the state prison system. It's expensive. And this is just one more opportunity. The amazing thing is we have convinced some caregivers, might be grandma, grandpa, that knows these older children, but they're not a caregiver, they're just their grandparent. They will agree to work with the foster parent, pick up the children once a month, twice a month, take them up to prison. And I'm perfectly confident that the prisons are a safe place for these older children to visit, and even babies. And when that parent gets out of custody, number one, they hit the ground running. Talk about engaging a parent. I have had parent after parent get out of our local jails, our state prisons, that are immediately engaging in their services, that are immediately beginning ordinary daytime visitation, which of course gradually grows. What's even better is when they're in our local jails, they may, the foster parents have even done it, but we work with a caregiver. We tag team to get it together to get somebody to go to the jail, and they get to see daddy or mommy. And it is an amazing breakthrough for them. The state prisons is starting to work with us, and we will notify the classification officer by a court order that, by the way, if you can possibly move this parent to a place, and we'll say a designated area in the Tampa Bay area, Pasco County, Pinellas, wherever, so that we can have more frequent visits with the children. And they're starting to do that.
Oh, that's good news.
It's absolutely incredible. And older children, I'll have a 13-year-old that's been nothing but trouble in that group home. Comes in, Mr. Tough Guy, to court, and then Dad gets on the phone. Son, I miss you. I love you. And he's just crying, Daddy, I miss you so much. And they're just so up. They're double thumbs up about, we're going to see Dad next month. We're going to see Mom next month. And they live for that. It's the children are benefiting from finding these creative ways to put the parents together with the children.
Well, that brings up a kind of an important question that I would have for you, because as a foster parent, which I am, what is your recommendation about telling the child about a visit if we're not sure the parent is going to show? Because as a foster parent, you also hate to set them up for that disappointment. And when you have a parent who maybe sometimes has a tendency to cancel or not show up, what would you suggest?
Well, of course, I think it depends. I think that children are entitled to the truth. I don't want to see children unnecessarily emotionally torn up. Older children get angry, but what I don't want is to have an older child get angry at the foster parent or us and then be resistant to any positive things that are offered, because the focus unfortunately needs to be on the parent who isn't doing what they're supposed to do. And I do not believe in making excuses for parents, and that's why I'm happy to have children in court, and actually particularly older children hear that their parents are or are not doing their substance abuse treatment, are or not in their batterers intervention program. Then they know that the parents have been given an opportunity and are not taking advantage of it. It is a rejection to the child, an older child, that they will carry with them, and they need to work it out and talk about, because of course it's, why don't they want to see me? What did I do wrong? And that just needs to be discussed, and it needs to be thrown back on the parent. And I will have that discussion if need be in court. It is, you need to see your child for the sake of your child. Unfortunately, some of our parents are too far into their substance abuse, although we've had fabulous successes, and they're not ready for treatment yet, and they basically fade out off the radar. And the children gradually will stop asking for their parents. But let's say we're early on in the process. We have had such great success in the parents wanting to see their children, and we're trying to piece together transportation and things like that, that most of them show. And when we think it's going to be a problem, I will have them reconfirm and say, you need to reconfirm by 3 p.m. the day before that you're going to make it. Or if, I don't take away visits if they miss visits, I just make them reconfirm them. Also, we can't punish a child by canceling a visit because a parent is non-compliant with a case plan, which is different than not showing repeatedly for a visit. In other words, you can't say, well, I heard you missed 3 of your substance abuse counseling sessions, so the visit's off for this week. That is contrary to the Florida statute. It's not in the child's best interest, and you can't suspend a visit unless you have clear and convincing evidence that it's not in the child's best interest. So in the situation where the parent may not be going to their substance abuse classes, which may mean that they're using, or it may mean there's been a traumatic incident in their life that's interfered with their ability to get there. For that child, you might decide that you're not going to tell them there's a visit. Just say, we hope to have a visit soon, and I'll let you know. So you'll know in advance, or you may decide just to bring them to the visit once you've had the confirmation. We've actually even done that sometimes, where they live fairly close, is make the parent get there early and then say, come on, bring your child over.
Okay.
I mean, you have to play it by the circumstances. The great news is that used to be a big problem. It's less of a problem now. And again, we're trying to do it in natural settings so that it's at a home where they're visiting, let's say, grandma or grandpa, and then the parent is coming over. So they're at least having a visit with their other siblings, or they're with their aunts and uncles and other family members. So it's not quite as disappointing.
That's great. Well, we have some compelling statistics here. For all you foster parents out there that are questioning this visitation, that really show just how important these visits are, and the studies that show the difference it's made. And I would love to be able to post some of this information, and we'll try to get some of it to post it on our show, and then they can maybe download some of those statistics.
Well, the statistics are being gathered. The KC Foundation is going to work with us in measuring how frequency of visitation, meaningful visitation, is engaging the families and getting us to permanency sooner. Right now, I can tell you, based on my own caseload, we are getting to permanency without a problem within the timelines. And what happens is, I started since last August kind of keeping track of how many parents or children, based on the number of children that people have, are being reunited. And since last August, more than a year ago, I'm right about at 150 children that have been reunited. Understand, my caseload varies in the range of 215 to 230 cases. So it's really quite remarkable. And parents that I would never, if you had asked me, so you think she's going to make it or he's going to make it, the answer would have been no. And they're striving. And even some of my naysayers that were in the supervised visitation program, or some of our caseworkers, some of our child welfare attorneys will now come to me and say, I can't believe how successful this is. For instance, we have parents, as you know, we used to close out cases in we do permanent guardianship now, but it used to be long-term relative care. And so I had parents with 8 children in long-term relative care. And the parent will have another child, and which is, of course, another reason that we have to solve what's driving them, that voice, that old childhood trauma. We'll have another child, and that child comes into the system, and we start using these new methods and the frequency, and they bond with that baby, and now they're not doing cocaine anymore, and they're clean, and they have safe surroundings and safe relationships. And in your old case, you might have closed it out and had said you could have periodic visits with their children. They're older children. They know who mom is. So they've had ongoing visits with their children, parenting time with their children. And now they're so successful, they'll say, Judge, what about reopening my old case? And then we'll get the old case reopened. And I had 5 children reunited with their mother that way. It's astounding, the successes.
Well, that's fantastic. We could talk on and on here, and I know we're running out of time, so maybe we can twist the judge's arm and have her come back and share some more, because she's got some more great information. We have just fantastic information that's coming down regarding this family-centered practice. And
can I throw one more?
She wants to throw one. Of course you can.
Okay.
She's the judge.
The amazing thing is that some of our foster parents have embraced co-parenting, so much so that these parents who had poor relationships with their parents and are probably still alienated from them form a parent-child relationship with their foster parent. And I have women and children who have given up babies and then allowed the foster parent to adopt. That foster parent comes to prison not just to bring the child that they have no obligation to bring anymore, but to be parent-like to that parent, both in custody and out of custody. I see these wonderful long-term relationships, and it's good for the children, it's good for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. So with that, we're going to have to end this conversation and interview with Judge Tepper. Some exciting news, and I hope that we'll be able to continue this in the future. So it's time to move on to some announcements that we've got for you. First of all, the video that we just did a couple weeks ago, and it was Understanding Substance Abuse and the Impact on Children, and that was from Eckerd Community Alternatives' Judith Warren. That has been posted to our website, so take a look at that. We also have a live webcast coming up and scheduled for October the 19th. That is going to be from 10:30 to noon, and it is going to be on infant development, their milestones, needs, and trauma. So I hope you can all join us live, but if you cannot, remember they are usually posted to the website at www.qpiflorida.com, usually about a week after we have to create that quiz, and so you can get your continuing education credits from taking a look at those videos. So it's under the foster parent training videos. Also, we have the contest that I have to remind you about. Guys, I know you're afraid, but look at how great Judge Tepper did, and she wasn't afraid of me. So if you will go onto our website, well, no, take that back. If you will go onto our Facebook page, the Just in Time Facebook page, and you just need to post in the little comment box, "That's me," that's my tagline from Luncheonette, you are going to win an interview with me, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping a lot of you foster parents out there will share your stories with other foster parents around the state, because it makes a difference when we share our successes, our challenges, how we overcame them. Other people can learn and get to know some of the things that we've been able to do in our lives. So get on there. And with that, I am going to thank Judge Tepper again for joining us.
I'll be happy to come back.
Fantastic, some great information. And thank you all for joining us today for Luncheonette. And I'm going to leave you, as promised earlier, with this premiere of our foster parent recruitment video from QPI Florida. Have a great day.
If you have a heart, if you love children, if you have patience, and if you have understanding and love to give, the rewards are amazing.
Being a foster parent is amazing. Once you actually can see some of the children that you're working with, and the first one's always hard. When they walk in the house, you have a different feeling. Once you've had multiple children in the house, you want the ultimate goal for this child is to be back where they belong.
If you're just willing to step up and help a kid out that's less fortunate but still deserves the world, that's all it takes.
We originally approached foster parenting in a way that it was to provide service to our community. So we didn't really, I have 3 children of my own, so it wasn't necessarily that we needed an extra child to come in the home, but it was just another way to serve our community.
It's all about, for me, the support that people give us. You are our inspiration. You are a part of the key to our success in life. You can help us in every way. You are the parents that we never had, or maybe we did have at one point and something just went really wrong.
I think the #1 qualification to being a foster parent is opening your heart, willing to open your home to a child that you don't know, but a child that you're willing to take the time to get to know and love.
That's all that you need. You don't need money, just a good heart, and then you're good to go.
We will always remember them. We will never forget you. You are the people who have helped us along the way.